Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Empowering Educators. Thank you so much for joining us again. My name is Kacey Forks. I'm an instructional coach here at Boerne High School. This is Chad Anderson. Sorry Chad, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so Chad Anderson, also at Boerne High School. We're coming to you from the Hill Country in Boerne, Texas.
Yeah, and this is our special guest today. This is Lisa Melendez. She's joining us. We have a great conversation in store for you today. We're going to be talking about data-driven instruction and what that looks like in classrooms. So we're very excited to have you. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
As always, we like to kind of start out with kind of the philosophy behind and the research behind data-driven coaching, or anything that we're coaching our teachers on. And so our resources today are from Diane Sweeney's Coaching Moves and her student-centered coaching at the secondary level. And she is one, in our district, she is one of the coaches that we use that as we get trained with how. So the point is that we're focusing solely on student work, student results, and then again, we're partnering with the teacher to see where is it the student isn't mastering what skills that the teacher wants them to master, and then help that teacher make decisions to move the students forward. So it's not about the teacher, it's about the student learning.
Right, and for so long, I think that classroom instruction and what teachers were doing it was based on the grades, and it was solely about those numbers. Whereas now we've really shifted, and it's about looking at the data and how kids are performing on specific skills, and how we can use that then to drive our instruction. So data is huge in the classroom in every content area.
And it is, and it tells a story, and part of that story are the successes. And I think that's something that gets lost when we've analyzed data in the past, is there are glows. So our kids are being successful. Yes. We showcase our teachers and all the awesome things that they are doing. So it does tell us a story, and so we're just trying to see and navigate where the students are at the particular time. It also fits in with what we do at Boerne High School and Boerne ISD, which is a lesson study PLC process. So it's where we examine and identify, which is going to be part of the conversation today, where we're going to look at recent assessment data. We review, reflect, and revise on that based on the data. So you'll hear that conversation as part of the lesson study, and then we review our lesson plans to see how much of that time needs to be taken up with a review of the current skill.
Right, and it allows, looking at that data allows us to know what we need to focus on, what we have done well. It also helps teachers really look at, when they're partnering together, hey, you know what, your kids did really well on this skill and mine kind of tanked. So what is it that you're doing, and what can I do better? Or how, sometimes you're able to share kids at, various times or whatnot, or really talk about those strategies. So it's, there's so much that we can glean from it all.
And before we get to our guest today, kind of the last thing, so I mentioned Diane Sweeney, and so some of her coaching moves that I've used in the past are noticing and naming, you pick 4, micromodeling, and thinking aloud. And basically noticing and naming and you pick 4 are basically the same. It's the teacher has to determine a specific skill that she wants to know how students are progressing on, and so you move around the class and collect that data. Under the you pick 4, I would have a specific 4 to focus on because that teacher wants that data. And so I know using those have been very effective. Thinking aloud is really awesome in the classroom because it's you and the teacher and the coach talking, and say, hey, what are you noticing? I'm noticing this, and you're able to make the in-game adjustment or in-class adjustment.
Well, and you bring up a great point, and something that we've touched on in prior episodes, that data isn't always like looking at a multiple choice exam, right? And it's something that if we come in and can help collect that data, that's just, we're able to check about, we're looking for specific things, we're able to tell immediately if this is happening or if it's not, and then that's feedback that goes straight to the teacher that can then, as you're monitoring and adjusting, okay, this is what I need to, they're kind of missing this, so let me retouch on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's welcome our guest in, Ms. Melendez. So can you tell us a little bit about just your, how long you've been teaching, what grade levels you've taught, and what you're currently teaching.
Okay, so I have taught in 3 states. My husband was military, so I've taught in California, Hawaii, and Texas. I have taught everything grades 1 through 11 now. Yes. And I've done math in all of those subjects, as well as pull-out reading. And I think that's very important, as district exams are kind of reading tests, even though I'm a math teacher at Bernie High. So we talk about how to go in and make sure we even know what the test is asking. So as I said, currently I'm teaching Algebra 1, 9th grade, and I am also teaching 2 sections of geometry, which is 10th graders, but our primary focus for today is Algebra 1.
Okay, that's right. And as Kacey had mentioned earlier, data is more than numbers, and I know partnering with you in the classroom, you have a really good skill of reading your students based on what they're doing and getting the feedback from them if they're ready to move on. And so you do a very good job of that. We are going to focus on a particular unit exam that we most recently took. So I want to start by saying, because we want to focus on GLOW, so I want to say this, the Algebra 1 team from this test from a year ago, it's not the same students, but it is the same standards. We had in our 3 categories, we had a 9%, 23%, and 50% growth, and that 50% was in the mastery category.
That's incredible.
Yes, and it's the strategies being implemented by y'all that helps make that successful. And we were already doing pretty good last year, so it's not like we were really low. So it's so that's amazing. So what other things did you notice that maybe you expected your students that they were successful in?
Well, so my goal this year is to have students show their work. And so as we've been doing notes, I'm trying to really guide the process of, yes, you're doing things mentally, but please write it down, because there's multi-steps to every problem. And what happens is, as you're solving it mentally, if you're not writing it down, sometimes you lose track, and it can just be as simple as losing track of the sign that goes with the number. And if you change the sign, your entire answer is going to end up being wrong. So we're really working on that in all of my classes, and I'm really, really proud of my students, because they are doing so well, because when we are taking notes, they're following. And I'm very big on color coding, so I change colors a lot, and it's so cool because a lot of my kids are like, how many colors today? And they want to do it too.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's really helping them to remember, oh, I have to switch a color. That's because I'm doing this. And I am seeing that translated in their actual work and tests, because those that show their work, unfortunately, we're not at 100% of kids that will take the test and show their work as they go. Some of them are like, I didn't need this paper. And I'm like, you had 20 problems. What do you mean you didn't need that paper? But the majority of them that are actually taking the time to utilize that paper, they are doing the steps, and I'm so proud of them for that.
Well, the color coding thing I think is awesome. I love that, because it really does force them then to think about what they're doing and how they're going through that. So do you feel like that has directly related, like transferred over, and that's really helped them on that test?
I do, just because, so Unit 1 is basically the foundational unit for like all math. It's using distributive property, it's using order of operations, the combining the like terms. And so we rainbow in a certain color for distributive property. And something that I've noticed, not to bring up the GROW, but what I've noticed with distributive property is they know what to do, and they'll write the rainbows. And what tends to happen with my students, if they're going to make an error, is let's say that it's 3 parentheses x minus 2. They're bringing down 3x, and then they're bringing down the minus 2, and I'm like, well, what did that rainbow do with the 3 and the negative 2? Oh, that's supposed to be negative 6. But they're not catching that on their own yet, so that's my goal, is to get them where they're revisiting before they just click an answer, because test makers know the errors they're going to make, so their answer is going to be there, is what I try to tell them. So I always am like, that's awesome, you show your steps, then go back and check. And sometimes they'll raise their hand and I'm like, I've done it 3 times, and I'll look and I'm like, oh, do you see how this was a negative right here and now you turned it into a positive? Why did it change? And they're like, I just wrote that wrong. And I'm like, that's the problem.
So is that the GROW, the big GROW that stood out from the unit assessment, or was there something else that?
I think that's my biggest GROW, is making sure that we're distributing properly to both terms within the parentheses, And really, we're still really working on positive and negative integers and how those come into play. And that's something that just, it hasn't become rote yet to them. So, I mean, I'm like a broken record. A negative times a negative is that, and then you'll hear like some of them yell it out real quick, and some of them are like still iffy on positive, and and you're like, y'all, we've got to know what happens with these signs. So I think signs of integers is another thing that it goes hand in hand with everything we're doing, but it's going to be something that reoccurs probably all year, just to make sure they really finalize that, because as they get into higher math, that's going to be really problematic if they don't know what sign to use.
When you talked about this part in your partner teacher, right? Does she kind of see the same things, or were they different?
It's really interesting how similar our data really was, and we have very different ways of how we go about. We use the exact same notes, which I think is great because we have had kids move between classes, and so if they end up coming to my class because of a schedule change, I mean, they're right where we are. Our way of going about presenting the notes may be different, but they're getting the exact same information. And so we are seeing similar trends. It's not like one of us is like excelling super much on one question and then not on the other, which I have had in past with colleagues. And it is cool, like you said, to be like, hey, what'd you do different? Because my kids did not get this. And sometimes you get a really cool technique. We haven't found that yet, but we've only had one test.
But I think it also says something about the planning that you guys are doing together, and if you're using the same, then clearly, I mean, and with those results, what you're doing is working. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So part of the lesson study process we work on is, so you've identified a student focus. So what are the next steps? What have y'all decided that you want to do? Because you did say it's a foundational unit that basically loops through every unit they're going to have this year, culminating in their EOC tests.
So we've decided currently that for our multi-step problems with variables on both sides, which for the people that aren't math, that means you have letters on both sides of your equal sign, and we only want one letter on one side.
I appreciate the clarification.
With that, we've decided that that's going to be our focus right now, is to make sure that we know how to manipulate the problems to get the variable that we want to learn. So we are using this awesome program that I have to shout out to one of our colleagues, Mr. Jeffcoat, because he did a training last January, like right after Christmas break, and I just like him as a person, so I was like, I'm gonna go to his training. Changed my teaching to go to this Edpuzzle training. Awesome. Like, if you have not tried Edpuzzle and you're a teacher, please check it out. It's awesome. So Edpuzzle is these videos that are awesome for our kids, because in this digital age, most of our students are watching these shorts, right? And they only have so much attention, and we're up there talking about this multi-step problem, and if they're not bought in, we lose them at like step 1 of 6. So what's really cool about Edpuzzle is it's already created data by teachers all over the world, and it gives little chunks where it like describes something and then asks a question. Describe something, ask the question. And it's just really cool because the kids are engaged because they have to be, because they're not, oh, I can zone out until the end when I'm going to answer a question. They have to answer and do the steps as they go. So yesterday was our first day implementing warm-ups, and so we did 2. One was a music video that gave, I learned this yesterday, it's called a backronym. I had to look it up because I wanted to tell my students what it was. So like PEMDAS, right? We create, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That sentence is a backronym. And so we did this video. It's called Don't Call Me After Midnight. And all the letters stand for a part of the process. So as they were watching it, they're listening to this like rap video, and it's teaching the steps. And then at the end, it says, what does the D, C, M, A, M stand for? And so in their notes, I told them, pay attention, write down anything you think is important from this music video. There's only gonna be one question, that's it. It's at the end. Then they went into an actual guided lesson where they had, I believe it was 3 of those types of problems. And in the first 2, the instructor in the video is stopping at each step and they have to answer. And then if they get it wrong, they're going to continue watching, so then they know what they did wrong. And going back to our showing every step, I told them, when you are watching the video, you need to work it out with her. If she writes, you write. And it was amazing with it being their first time doing it without any kind of fill-in. They just had their journals that they were writing in. How awesome the students did on all of this tasks. Like, honestly, and you took some pictures, so hopefully you're seeing those right now.
They're seeing them. So even
it was so impressive.
they were writing down the steps.
Yes.
With the letters, so that even though you've gone over those steps before and they've got it in their journal, they were writing it down again, like almost 100%, I would say, of the class. Like, I don't think I saw anybody not having that in their notebook, which just, again, gets them in the mind one step to the next, and then they were moving into the other activity. So what did the how are you able to use the ed puzzle? So y'all determined a warm up. We're going to kind of include this in.
Yes.
So how are you able to see now? Do my students getting it?
So, and I believe you took a picture, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show Kacey because she wasn't there and she's not seeing the picture. So it's really cool because every video you assign, it gives you your students and it tells you how they did. And it tracks it, and it color codes it for you.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because one of my boys, Chad laughed. He goes, "Miss, this is light work. Why are we doing this?" And I said, "It's totally light work, guys." And guess what? It was the most missed stuff on the test. This light work that you feel you're making those simple errors. So until it truly is light work for everybody, we're going to keep doing this. But what I love is, this one was very, very guided, so it's very green. And there's a couple of kids that didn't get it. And so if they're all getting green and I spot check that, like, this kid keeps staying red, I can pull that kid and work, and we can move to the next thing for everybody else. And I might double them up where I'm saying, hey, I'm going to assign you this one I want you to do tonight because tomorrow during warm-up we're doing something else, but you still need practice. Yeah. And so I just love it because, again, I love colors and it's just real quick and apparent. And what I love about Ed Puzzle also is if we want to give them like a skills check grade, it does the percent right here of all the videos. So something I learned last year, because I asked Jeff Code, I was like, hey, you trained us on this. Is there a way, I only want it for this unit? And he goes, I don't know. And we went in there and clicked around. You can pick a start and an end date. Nice. And so if you're doing just one skill, whenever you started skill, whenever you ended the skill, and then put it into Skyward as a skill check, their overall grade for all the process they've done, which I just think is really cool because it's not a 1, oh, you got a 0 and it hurts you in Skyward. It's going to be a collective, did we grow, what did you get by the time our class is moving on with the skill.
And the fact that they have multiple chances to improve on that skill, like to continue working on it.
And it's so cool because you literally come in and you do a search and I'm going to show you real quick. Oh, so I have a kiddo in geometry who's chronically absent, and he's also SPED and EB. And I had him for a different class last year, and this works really well for him. So him and his case manager and I talked about, hey, we really got to get him caught up. What can we do? And so yesterday when he came up to me in class, I said, hey, do you remember when we used this program? And I pulled it up and showed him. He said, yeah. And I said, do you want to do worksheets or do you want to do these? He busted out 6 of them last night for homework.
Nice.
Like, it's so cool, and I instantly know if he got the concept or not, which is just amazing as a resource, whether you're using it to fix, like, help a kiddo, or if you have a kid out and you're just like, there's no way they're drowning. This will give you instant feedback, which I love. But you just search it, and I'm going to show you real quick how many videos come up. Multi-step.
So while you're doing that, I love the fact that she's individualized the lessons, and she's got 35 plus kids in her class, right? That she's able to individualize.
There's so many.
These are all on there.
This is just when I search in solving multi-step, and you can pick the video.
That's super cool.
If you don't like the questions, you can go in and edit the questions. You can change how many questions are asked. You can just give them a shorter clip. I could probably sell this product. I love it so much. Like, Ed Puzzle is awesome. So if you are an educator, check it out because it's got all content areas. But definitely for math, we found it super duper helpful. Mr. Jeff Cope teaches science, so I'm sure it's got plenty for every subject.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I really love it.
So again, I love how you've been able to individualize it, and so the data you gathered yesterday, the majority of the class got it.
Super well.
Yeah, like we're talking hundreds, right? 3 or 4, but now it's their work. This is your practice. This is targeted specifically for you. So the growth is going to have such a huge impact because you're able, this program allows you to analyze that data quick and flip it around. And something else I've noticed, Kacey, is as we've had our teachers in here, we're hearing a lot of the same things. So we're using color in our different disciplines, and color stands out for kids. And then the collaboration between
Yep.
departments. We heard that in our last episode as
Yeah.
well, and that's what we love. Like, we're collaborators, we're lifelong learners as well, and I love hearing
Yeah.
that our teachers are learning from each other.
That's the best place for us to learn.
Yes.
It really is. So you've got some of these great, like, fantastic strategies going on that definitely lend themselves, to your goal and what you're doing. What kind of obstacles are you coming across? Or what are some things, or maybe some obstacles you even anticipate?
So honestly, I was talking with our EB support team this morning because our EB students, especially like our new to the country students, math is a universal language. We all know that. However, Algebra 1 isn't a universal language from Latin American countries, I learned. So they haven't seen a lot of this if they've been educated wherever they came from. They're seeing distribute and all these things. So yes, they understand add, subtract, multiply, divide, but you're putting so much together, and they didn't have that same building as to
Right.
know, and then the vocabulary of it. So I think that's another reason why the colors come in, and we have these posters. They're by Graffiti Math, and they're awesome. They say the word, they show like an example within the word. Actually, I should have brought an example for y'all, sorry. And it's just really cool because then down below, it only has the term in Spanish, but it has the Spanish term. They're seeing the word, and there's some kind of mathematical play on the word within the word that you're seeing. So like distribute, it has like the D, and then everything else is in parentheses, and it's distributing the D so that you see it creates the word distribute.
Yeah.
And my students are doing really well with the different programs. What we were discussing is their hard work isn't transferring to showing on the DCAs as much as I would like it to. And so for me, as I said, part of our test is kind of almost like a reading test. They need to understand what's happening. So just, I would say that barrier of making them feel like they're growing as much as they are, because they are growing. And so I don't like them to see that their test score isn't as great as their mind, I guess, is my biggest.
So with your
Moment.
EB support group, did y'all discuss strategies to try to help?
So one of our EB specialists was saying, well, we really, they have the ability to come to tutoring. It is offered. Thankfully, my co-teacher, Ms. Parton, offers 2 nights a week that they can come for 90-minute sessions after school. So there is that availability. The problem is, being that they're 9th graders, it tends to be a transportation issue.
Yes.
Because they have to take the bus and they can't get on the bus. So we were talking about how we're gonna go about making sure that, again, they're working in class and they're working hard, but how we can make sure we're fostering so that it shows on their exams. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out at the moment.
Okay, so that'll be something to work on. I can definitely help, because so we can control the time